Have you ever thought that your mind is a safe place? That your inner, most comfortable world could never be violated? What if I told you that in the 20th century, the CIA was trying to crack the human psyche? And what if I told you they succeeded? Join us today here on Mystery Archives as we dive into the mind-boggling mystery of mind control. November 28th, CIA scientist Frank Olson was alone in his hotel room in New York City. He allegedly charged full speed into a window and fell to his death. This apparent suicide came as a shock to his wife and children, who described him as a cheerful husband and a loving father. How could a seemingly happy family man go from healthy to leaping through a window? To answer this question, we must go back to the beginning. Near the end of the Korean War, the American government were appalled that some prisoners of war would return, expressing sympathy for their communist captors. This led the US government to believe that Chinese and North Korean interrogators must have used mind control upon American captives. In response, on April 13, 1953, CIA Director Alan Dulé greenlit the initiation of Project MKultra. MKultra was allegedly a continuation of work which began during World War II in Nazi concentration camps and Japanese facilities. The work in particular focused on controlling and subduing human minds. The project was headed by Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist and spy master. Its aim was to develop mind-controlling drugs for use against the Soviets. However, this goal would lead to some of the most horrible experiments ever inflicted upon unsuspecting American citizens. The earliest efforts of the program were focused upon the applications of LSD-25, a potent and famous hallucinogen. The agency sought to discover if they could use the chemical to make Soviet spies defect against their will, and whether the same was capable of happening to their own CIA agents. The 1953 experiments involved giving LSD to prisoners, mental patients, drug addicts, and sex workers. In other words, people who couldn't easily fight back. One particular instance had the CIA administer LSD to a Kentucky mental patient for 174 days straight. In addition, the agency administered the drug to its own employees, doctors, and military personnel, as well as members of the general public, to study their reactions. The administration of the chemical was usually done without the prior knowledge or consent of the person taking it. The goal of these specific experiments were to study that of erasing memories, producing a potential truth serum, so forcing confessions, and to potentially induce the victim into a blank-like state. During other experiments, the dosed victims were interrogated under bright lights with doctors nearby. They were told that their trips would be extended if they didn't tell all of their secrets. These victims ranged from CIA employees to US military and agents suspected of working for the other side during the Cold War. These experiments resulted in long-term problems for the victims, and even death. While thus far LSD had only been used for interrogations, Dr. Gottlieb saw potential for the chemical in more covert applications. He believed it could be used on high-ranking officials and affect important meetings or speeches. Since he knew that there was a difference between testing in a lab and testing in the field, he started a series of experiments where LSD was given in normal settings without prior warning. As the experiments progressed, it got to a point when surprise acid trips became an occupational hazard for CIA employees. This, of course, led to adverse reactions. One such instance had an operative become psychotic and run across Washington, seeing a monster in every car that passed him. Frank Olson, an Army chemist and CIA operative, approached his superiors with doubts about the questionable morality of the program. He was then asked to resign. When visiting a CIA retreat, his superior covertly dosed his drink with LSD. He had never taken LSD before, and over the next 9 days, Olson would experience a deep depression as a result of the drug. He would then take the plunge out of his 13th story hotel window. In spite of this tragedy, the experiments continued unabated. Eventually, MKultra researchers dismissed LSD as being too unpredictable and abandoned the substance altogether as an interrogation tool. They instead turned to not only other drugs, but hypnosis as well as the project moved forwards, their methods ranging from subtle manipulation to overt abuse. The project then continued for 20 years, and it is unknown just how many people were potentially involved in the experiments. Thank you so much for joining us on the first episode of Mystery Archives. Make sure to join us next Sunday for part 2 of the mystery of mind control. Remember to question everything, and we will see you next time.